All right. Good evening. Kamusta, Ben? Good to finally see you. It's a pleasure. So we're joined by Ben Bernabe. What future attorney, ba? Ben? Is that
Hopefully, yes. Oo,
hopefully? God willing.
attorney.
Yeah, future attorney, soon or soon to be attorney Ben Bernabe, hopefully. And of course, we got to know each other in the context of the campaign. Of course, because I reach out to different campaigns. I have no. I mean, I reached out. Of course, I know Lenny was so busy, etc. I'm sure many people reach out, but the reason I also reached out to you back then was because of your designation. Just to get it clear, Ben, you were head of communications, right? Of the
Yes, I'm
campaign.
I'm head of communications of Team Leni Robredo. So that's a specific organization that is part of the campaign. So the communications group is actually huge.
Mhm.
Of
Yes,
course, we
can
have
you give us the outlay of the
yeah, okay.
organization? Kasi naka-confused kami. Like, akala namin, ito, Lenny pala, hindi pala, kasi sa team pala ni Kiko Pangilinan. Yun ang mga isa. Like,
Yeah.
can you explain
Oo.
to us the lay of the land, please?
Okay, so of course every candidate has their own comms team, 'di ba? And then you have a comms team for Lenny, for VP Lenny then. So in our group, so there was a scenario before the announcement, of course. No? So
Right.
you would have, of course, our official functions were done by the OVP comms, the Office
Right.
of Vice President comms. And then there was a group which is Team Leni Robredo who was um pushing her to run. No, so that I'm part of that group. So that's a volunteer group. And then
Right.
so when Ma'am announced that she was running, she got Senator Bam as the campaign manager. No, so
Right.
our group became bigger, and then Bam also created his own comms team, the official campaign comms team. No?
Mm.
So the official messaging comes from the campaign comms or from BAM,
Right.
and then we interpret that for the volunteers. No, so for Team Leni Robredo, our objective is to recruit volunteers. So our messaging is more about join us, be a
Right.
volunteer, and then of course the bigger campaign, the message was directly to the voters.
Right.
Sorry, that sound directly for the voters. So the objective was to, of course, get the votes. No, so
Right.
I'm part of the team that is basically in charge with recruiting volunteers, and I think we were pretty successful in that regard. No,
Yeah.
getting more volunteers
Right.
into the organization.
Yeah, Ben, so I'll push a little bit more on this.
Sure.
There's a lot to discuss today. I just want for people to understand na hindi biro yung campaign. It's not like
Yeah.
one vlogger saying this, five people just deciding. It's a machine, right? It's a whole
Yeah.
machine because you're running for the votes of 50, 60 million people. I hope people understand what we're talking about, the scale here. So I think a lot of times people criticize the campaign or each campaign, or including yourself, yours truly, when I think there's not proper appreciation of the scale. But I don't know if this is trade secrets, but how big is the core team as far as the communications team is? Like, can you give us some numbers? Is it double digit, triple digit?
I mean, just for the comms of Lenny herself, I think will be around, for sure, more than 100.
Exactly.
I
It's a
mean,
big
the
operation.
top level will be around probably 30 to 50 people,
Right.
just like the very top level.
Yeah.
And then you have, of course, maybe the middle group. And then you have the,
Volunteers.
writers, the
Oh,
editors,
right, right.
the copywriters, video editors. I can speak for my team alone. So under my team, we have around 500 volunteers,
Right.
which are actually these are not like people who just show up for one event, but these
At
are
the
like,
door. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, they were there from like October 7 all the way to May 7,
Right, right.
and really putting in the hours. So we're talking about video editors. We have ground crew, people who go
Right.
to every sortie, looking for every story that we can put out there. Volunteer stories, supporter stories, conversion stories. So our ground crew team has like a photographer, videographer, a writer, a researcher. So you can just imagine
Right.
the scale
Big.
of that. No,
Yeah.
and I would say that, yeah, probably there would be a thousand people
Right.
If you're gonna go all throughout the entire like hierarchy, there are a lot of people involved, and many of these are actually volunteer. Like,
Volunteers,
yeah,
exactly. Hindi sila paid. They're not there for
yeah,
the fancy,
yeah,
positions. They're there because they believe in the cause and they
yeah.
believe in the candidate. Speaking of the candidate, of course, later on pag-usapan natin in campaign, and really we're here to talk about ways forward, right? This is not about pointing fingers at a certain direction. No, that's not what I'm interested. I want to just analyze it as objectively as possible with the people who are better informed than me, better informed than us, and a ways forward. But let's rewind a little bit, kind of Star Wars, episode 5. Now, first of all, well, it was not clear whether Ma'am Leni was gonna run, right? Until kind of like the 11th hour or so. Like, how was it for you people? Like, were you optimistic that she'll run? Because I remember very well in the third quarter, the big discussion was, and I'm not gonna also spill beans because I had my information also about, there were talks about a unit team also of the opposition. I kind of have the version of the Lenny side, the version of Isco side, how it went wrong. Each of them have their own version. I don't want to get into that fight. I mean, I don't have a stance on that. But for you guys who will eventually be front and center at the core of this campaign, were you expecting Ma'am Leni to run, and and how did you feel when she decided to run? Because I remember that day everything went pink. I mean, it was insane, right? You open every digital screen, pink. It's insane. Like, even people who don't like Leni or didn't like opposition, they were just overwhelmed by the color blast was going on. Can you tell me about the drama of the moment and the anticipation, anxiety, uncertainty, all of that? Because I think that's everything, the human side, the drama of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure if everyone will remember, but I think she was starting to be asked around. Well, I think a year earlier she was
Yeah, a
already
long
being.
time, of course. Yeah.
And then it became more frequent, I think around June, July.
Third quarter.
I think
Yeah.
we had this not sure if it was the Delta variant surge, but we had some surge happening.
Right, right.
But at the same time, we were also in the thick of really pushing her candidacy, and our objective was to really encourage her. The main subject or the main audience of the Team Leni Robredo campaign was Leni herself, because we really didn't know whether she'll run or not until the very last minute. So
Right.
the date that we found out was October 5, and that was 2 days before. And before October 5, there were like whispers and murmurings that she has decided. She said that she will decide. I think there was a September date. I think it was, at first it was like the 15th.
Right, right.
Because we had like, we had a comms plan for her from June, July, August. It was just 3 months. Because I remember this because by September, we didn't have any content anymore, because we thought she should have decided by the end of August, but she didn't. And then so we were told the
You
date
mean the
would.
warm-up content, like the trailer
Yeah,
content,
this
right?
is
Exactly.
the content to encourage her to
Here to
run.
run, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
We did a culminating online event on October 31, I think, or it's
Right.
National Heroes Day. So our campaign was like, kay Lenny, panalo tayo.
Right.
I don't remember. Or kay Robredo tayo ang panalo, something like
Right,
that.
right.
So that was our message. And then that's when we had all of these sectoral organizations
Right.
and regional organizations really organized and built up and giving their solidarity statements with Lenny. So we had all of these lawyers for Lenny, doctors for Lenny, basically every sector about Lenny.
Yeah.
Became a meme later on, right? So we had that around August, and then we thought that she'd decide after that, but she didn't. And then we were told by some insiders that it will be September 15. And then when September 15 came and she did not decide, so we were starting to lose hope about her actually running.
Oh,
And
so you
that's
had doubts at some point, na
we
she's not gonna. Oh, okay, I see.
the whole September we had doubts.
Oh,
We were not sure because
hindi lang ito drama. Hindi lang
drama
hindi ito
talaga.
Tatay Digong style na lang to
Oh,
ground. Pero
it was
actually andun na
really,
siya. Okay.
yeah, it was really a cliffhanger. And then I think she had meetings. If you remember, she had meetings with Isko, with
Yes,
Pacquiao.
I remember those moments very well. Yeah.
So we were really speculating whether uh if she'll run with any of them,
Right.
if she's gonna slide down as a running mate. Because the that's the nightmare of some of the volunteers. No, we
How
won't.
did you feel about it? I mean, the prospect of an Isco Pacquiao. Because I remember there was one point Lenny said she's even willing not to run and support if there's a more viable or something
Like
like that, right?
a unity candidate for the
Yeah,
main.
exactly. Kaya nga I was thinking, wow, this is getting interesting. And I know one of the other camps was suggesting, see, she actually didn't want to run. She wanted also, you can guess, right? So I'm just trying to retrieve yung emotions of the moment and also like what was going on inside our mind, because for us it would be a big deal if
Yeah.
Lenny did not run as much as it was a
Yeah.
big deal if she were to run, no? So there were times, especially September, na bati kayo, medyo hindi kayo sure, no?
Yeah, the whole September we weren't really sure. And then in our
Wow.
meetings we were asked now, how would you feel if ma'am didn't run but supported another
Another
candidate?
candidate, yeah.
And we were being asked, like, do you think we can pivot our volunteers to support the candidate that was supported by ma'am?
Right.
And majority of the people, of course, said, the name of the organization is Team Leni Robredo for some reason. So I
Yeah.
don't think you can
Transferable.
ask them to support. The support is not transferable at all. But I do remember, like, there were talks that, VP Lenny was really she was really personally she found Manny Pacquiao really parang ano to, straight kausap. How do you say that ba?
Yeah.
Diretso siya kausap,
Oh
like
yeah, madaling kausap. Like yeah.
madaling
He's
kausap.
pretty straightforward. Yeah, you know,
Was
walang laro, walang nothing. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's a
he
man
was
of
a man of his word. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. So I think
exactly.
that's how ma'am described it, Manny Pacquiao. And then when we heard that, we're like, I'm not sure if we're gonna be happy if
Word
if
Pacquiao. Right?
if it was a Lenny Pacquiao tandem,
Mm.
or if we can convince people of that a Lenny Pacquiao tandem will work. I mean,
You mean Lenny run as VP again? Like, did that even make sense?
either way, because either way, I think either Lenny as president and Manny Pacquiao as vice,
Right.
or the other way around, because those were all the
But
possibilities.
would it make sense for Lenny to run again for vice president? I mean, is that even
She
possible?
was open to it. I mean, yeah, it is possible. Like, it's a VP can run as
Yeah, you can
president.
run again. Yun nga, but
Yeah.
parang weird, diba?
It's just weird, yeah. But I think,
Yeah.
I think it shows her character. Like, she's not really in it
Way.
for the ambition, but she knows that if she can be a supportive vice president to someone who is winnable, then she'll do it. She's really a woman of her word, and she's really there for the service, really, not for the
Right.
presidential position.
Ben, I want to ask this because for many people, I remember 2016 when Lenny won. Noli De Castro asked me like, "Why do you think Lenny won?" I said one of the things that made her very attractive was she was kind of a reluctant politician or candidate, and
Yeah.
that signaled authenticity and sincerity in ways that really connected with a lot of people. And I said, yeah, in one way they're kind of opposite of each other, Duterte and Lenny, but in some way both were outsiders, and I think 2016 was really a kind of an outsiders elections. No, again, I know, of course, we'll completely disagree, but in a way, both were not part of the core elite Imperial Manila elite, right? But the thing, although, is by 2021, the idea was, I'm not sure a Lenny reluctant politician candidate would still work by this time because medyo iba ng usapan. You get what I'm saying? Like, some would
Yeah.
think that was a double-edged sword, that that reluctance shows that hindi siya trapo, and definitely she's not. But at the same time, parang, wait lang, don't we need a little bit of a decisiveness at now, especially when you're most likely up against either Marcos or Duterte, and it turned out actually a combination of the two, right?
Yeah.
Now, I just want to understand also what was going on in your mind in terms of that. So I think we all agree that when it comes to sincerity and non-traponess, Lenny ticks the box. But what about the
Yeah.
issue of indecisiveness? I mean, what was going on through your mind or other volunteers at this time? Parang, ma'am naman, sana naman. Like, wag naman
Yeah.
ganyan. Masyado na tong cliffhanger, di ba?
Yeah, I think the indecisiveness was one of the main main narratives that were being used
Right.
against her online. But you know what? When after some research, we did some qualitative research,
Right.
the biggest hurdle for her was being a woman specifically,
So
and then
misogyny.
yeah, the misogyny about it. And then I think the vice presidency was seen as something suitable for a woman, but for the
I see.
presidential ambition, you need a man. And I think that's something that doesn't get captured online. No, there's a lot of misogyny around it,
Right.
especially since she's an independent woman. She's a widow. She raised her
Right.
3 kids on her own. And if you look at the fake news that were going around at that time, it was really centered around her being a woman, like she was a kabet, or she had like she had an illicit relationship. And then
I see
uh
what you're saying.
yeah,
So your argument is the indecisiveness is actually a kind of a misogynistic narrative to delegitimize her or to question her leadership medal.
yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
like a strand of that. Like, women are indecisive and we can't have an indecisive president. So
But if they're decisive, then sabihin mo masyado silang feeling, they're
yeah,
you know,
ambitious.
ambitious,
That's a
exactly. Yeah.
very common parang term that's being used, ambisyosa. Like, but what's wrong with an ambitious woman, 'di ba? So, but not everyone is fond of an ambitious woman, unfortunately.
Many people unfortunately get threatened. I mean, in some ways, you can also understand the victory of President Duterte as kind of a patriarchal backlash, right, against the empowerment of women and gender minorities in the country, which is something we'll discuss later on because this is also your advocacy. I know this is something close to your heart. Now, can you tell us a little bit about how did you feel when you first got to know she's gonna run? Was it really on the day, or I'm sure medyo binigyan ka na ng heads up, diba, before it? And then what was your feeling when she actually announced it to the public?
We found out 2 days before, so October 5. And then actually, is it October 5? I know it
7,
was
diba,
not
yung ano niya?
October 7 was her announcement. Yeah, October
Right.
7.
5, tama, 5, yeah.
So I know it was not a full week for sure, but I think it was 2 days before. And we were frantic because we didn't prepare anything.
Yeah.
No? And then what we did though 2 weeks before was we did this tie a pink ribbon campaign, and we had some people, we had volunteers all over the country actually tying pink ribbons. Actually, we asked them to tie pink and blue ribbons, but I think, budget wise, people didn't have money for 2 colors, so they just
And
tied
Isco is the blue one, kind of,
I
right?
know, oo.
And then 5, diba? Yeah.
Yeah. And then so we asked people to tie pink ribbons wherever they are and then upload them. And then we actually didn't talk to the office of the vice president on the day, but when she did her announcement speech, she had the pink ribbon on her lapel already. So parang it became the semi-official color at that point, and
Right.
then they didn't change it anymore. So the pink color actually came from the volunteers. And
Yeah, I just want to ask, what is the logic behind, or what are the circumstances of choosing of the color pink? Why not yellow anymore? What's going on there? Yeah.
well, I think we're very self-aware naman about the color yellow being not a good color politically, and then it's being used as a pejorative, like
Right.
ilawan and everything. So the connotation really is not good. And pink is the color most associated with feminine power. So
Right.
she's the only female leader we thought was running. I mean, Sara Duterte was still in the run at that time, but we didn't think Sara would use the pink color. It's not very her. So, so I mean, you have a very limited, range of
Pink,
colors
yeah.
available. So no yellow, no blue, no red. And then no yellow. Yeah, no yellow or
And
white.
blue is gonna go actually. Isco was already getting blue, di ba?
Yeah.
Rin siya.
And he
Green kay
announced
Sara na
earlier.
yan. So wala ka na talaga masyadong options.
So had pink, and we had pink, and the volunteers were already using pink. So I guess for the campaign, they just realized that, well, I mean, let's just run with this color, and everyone seems to be happy with it. I think everyone in the campaign was happy with it because, visually, when you go to the rallies, it's a sea of,
Right.
it's really so
Ganda.
refreshing.
Yeah.
And it's never been used before politically, so it was very, very, very good.
Pero si ano, di ba, si Joke na naka Tiffany green
Yeah,
ba siya? Something like that.
teal, parang teal
Yeah,
yung.
yeah. I call it Tiffany or something. Yeah.
I think that's been his color ever since. So
It
he
jives
didn't
well naman.
change it
It
na.
jives
Oh,
well with the pink.
yeah, it gelled well.
Yeah.
So it worked.
What was your emotion when Vice President Leni Robredo announced it? Like she went all the way and she made the announcement, and then everything went pink in the country, right? All the screens. It was overwhelming, right? What was
Yeah,
was that organic? Was it half organic? What was going on there? Like
I think that was
so
organic.
overwhelming, right? Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of celebrities at that time.
At that moment, yeah.
At that moment, like October 7th, we didn't have any. And then so we just had very few celebrities and influencers who came out for her. So I think they started it. And then so they started using the pink squares.
Right.
And we also sent out like a ribbon, the pink ribbon, Laban Lenny. I'm sure you've seen that.
Right.
The pink ribbon with an L device, and people used that. And then it was really a very organic movement. I mean, we were just seeing all of them across our feeds, and we couldn't believe it. At the time, I mean, of course, all of the supporters were emotional during her speech. We were all crying, but at the same time, we were very incredulous because at that point, October, she was number 6 in the surveys,
Yeah.
and her number was like 5 to
Yeah,
7%.
yung mga ganun. Yeah.
If you're optimistic, 11. But so, and we know that the battle was uphill because we've been preparing like months before.
Yeah.
So we knew that we had to get from number 6 to number 2.
3 or 2, yeah.
Yeah. And then we were really parang incredulous na parang, is this really happening? Or parang, is this like confirmation bias? Because
Yeah.
this is our network. I mean, this is our social network. And even the data analytics, we didn't trust because the data analytics said that we dominated the share of voice that day on social media. And
Right.
we couldn't believe it. Like, this is like the first time in like 3 or 4 months where we dominated over the other candidates. And I think it was overwhelming on that day because we also had a deluge of volunteers.
Yeah.
Like, I think we had on that day alone probably 15,000, 20,000 volunteers signing up on that day.
Wow.
And we
20,000.
could, yeah, and
Saan pumipila mga to? Like, ano yung entrance
so
nila, di ba? Like, yeah.
we had a number of entry points, one for Team Leni Robredo, one for the I think Kaya Natin, which is an NGO. And then so we had to devise a system on the day because people want to
Yeah.
volunteer. And then so we got the details, and then we started reaching out to them afterwards. But the deluge never ended. I mean, every day you'll get thousands of people inquiring how they can volunteer. Yeah.
Next level. Now, Ben, before going to the campaign, I want to understand, how did you end up as the communication guy? Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself now? I think this time we want to understand also a little bit about you. Yeah. Medyo
Well,
mahalaga yung position mo eh. So we want to bakit binigay sa, I'm not questioning your qualification. I'm sure many are curious, no? What is with your advocacy, with your expertise, your passions that make the team believe you're the perfect person to run communication, which is like super important in our era of elections, right?
Yeah. So I'm the executive director of an NGO called the Red Whistle. And the Red Whistle, basically, it's a health and human rights behavior change organization. So we work with a lot of volunteers, and we work on promoting behavior change for certain health related risks like HIV, sexual health, and also politically on LGBT rights. And I got into it. I was recruited into it to be a volunteer for
When is this, like 2017, 19, 20?
no 2021, like on that year.
Oh,
It
okay.
was very recent. So, but of course, I've been a supporter of Lenny ever since. But I team Leni Robredo reached out to me specifically first to help organize the sectors. So I was assisting in organizing all of these professional sectoral groups like
Right.
LGBT for Lenny, doctors for Lenny, lawyers for Lenny, and everything else. And then so they gave me communications for that, but we needed someone to head the communications for the whole organization. So at first I was a deputy and then I became the head. And my work really was because we had so many talented volunteers who are like top of their game and in the industry. So we had everyone from PR, strat, marketing, creatives, comms. My role really was to give all of these volunteers space so that they can really do the job that they're doing. Although I was calling some of the shots, but it was really a very involved process,
Right.
like
Participatory.
volun
Yeah.
participatory, but in a way I wanted to give it like a structure wherein you don't get lost in analysis paralysis. So we were able to deliver a very responsive organization in comms. Like we have 500 people, so you really have to have a system. So everyone really contributed to the task that they were asked to do. So we had a big strat team providing strategy for all of our campaigns and executions.
Right.
So it's my role really was to give everyone space, and sometimes people can't decide, so I'll just make the
Yeah, you
decision.
have to. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to put the stop there. So yeah, that was my role, and that's how I got into Team Leni Robredo.
In what sense did the Duterte era shape your politics and your activism? Because a lot of us, I would say, even personally, I was more into foreign policy, West
Yeah.
Philippines. But once I sensed that Duterte was in the mix, I mean, on the record, I said he's a dark horse. I think second quarter pa lang 2015. This is with Tito Boy, diba? And then I said, you know what? I have to pay very serious attention to what's gonna happen internally. Next thing I know, may bagong career na ako as political analyst, right? So, and the rest is, of course, history. For you, like, how did the Duterte presidency shape your personal
Yeah.
politics, your career trajectory and priorities in life, and your passions in life? Yeah.
Yeah. When I started out with the Red Whistle, it was still the Aquino administration.
Right.
So
Right.
I started with the Red Whistle around 2011, but not as an executive director. So I became an executive director around 2018. So there was a big change in terms of the human rights climate, of course. No,
Right. Right.
the Aquino administration was very permissive of a lot of things, like of course dissent,
Yeah.
activism, and that was limited during the Duterte presidency. And if you remember, Duterte had some promises to the LGBT community, like
Exactly. Can you tell us a little bit? I mean, we heard, sorry for cutting you there, because
yeah,
we keep on hearing, but when it comes to Duterte, look at the LGBT community in Davao. I
yeah.
mean, Clara also had their own statements on that. Like, what is the truth of the matter? Is he more progressive? I mean, he talks about divorce. He talks about he's kind of against the grain on certain fronts, or is this all
Yeah.
lang drama lang, hanash lang niya yan?
I think it's just being his populist self. Like,
Right,
I mean,
right.
if it's a good soundbite, he'll say it. So depending on who the audience is, but
Mhm.
during the campaign, I think he had promises around same-sex marriage,
Yeah, exactly. Divorce.
divorce, yeah,
Yeah.
and then the main pusher for same-sex marriage. To be fair, Pantaleon Alvarez really actually
Correct.
filed,
Exactly.
filed a bill, and then later on became an ally of VP Lenny, um, and um, and then Duterte didn't prioritize that bill. He
Mm.
didn't sign it as urgent, no. So parang you don't know what
Ano
what
yun, 'di ba?
happened. Yeah, exactly.
Right, right.
So and
Hanash.
then it's really hanash. So in the Duterte presidency, there was there was kind of like some split in the LGBT community because
Yeah, yun nga eh, di
may
ba?
mga may mga pro Duterte na LGBT and now pro Marcos LGBT as well. And then
Including some of the top, I mean, influencers, right?
yes, yes,
That's my thing. Like again, like I'm always very careful talking about these things as a outsider, but that's one of the things I realize. If you look at it, there are a lot of influencers, top supporters of the president, come
yeah.
from specific sector that is of your concern. So like, how did you understand that? Wrap your head around that. Is it because Duterte actually at least yung mga hanash niya baka was encouraging enough? I don't know. You tell me. Like like that's something I always think about. I was like, what's the way to talk about it, but make sure you don't say something politically incorrect. You know what I'm saying? Like, parang, wag na lang. Ayaw na lang pag-usapan. Like, you tell me.
I really don't know. Like I think it's patronage more than
It's
anything
just,
else.
yeah, it just happened that, yeah, that's
Yeah,
one
I
way to
mean,
look at it. Yeah, yeah.
of course, some people would insinuate na some of them receive something out of the whole engagement, but I really can't wrap my head around the idea of supporting a president like Duterte policy-wise for LGBT individuals, and even women, for women's issues. I don't really see how they can reconcile it. So it's hard to look at, listen to them, talking about how good Duterte is for the LGBT community.
Mhm.
And we never saw it. Like, it's Duterte who allowed the killer of Jennifer Laude to be extradited, or I don't know what happened to him, but basically he was shipped back to the US. So I
And Harry
think
Roque had to announce that someone who was
I know.
supposedly, I mean, like the irony of the whole situation is like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Only in the Philippines. Diba? I mean,
A human rights lawyer, yeah,
right.
announcing that it was unthinkable.
Was on top of the Jennifer Laude case, right? Back in the day. I mean,
Yeah.
it was always front and
Mhm.
center when it comes to things like that. Did the Duterte era radicalize you to be much more uh, proactively a kind of an advocate of human rights and human dignity, all of those things? I mean, things that perhaps we took for granted under Aquino and other similar presidents.
It definitely expanded my area of advocacy. Like I'm not really active in like the discussion around extrajudicial killings, but I'm very much I'm a lot more involved in like figuring out why, how can we allow it to happen, like
Yeah.
nation. And then it really interests me how much our mind has shifted during the 6 years of the Duterte administration, and suddenly all of this is okay after 6 years,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
this was unthinkable during the Aquino administration. Like I don't know, I'm trying to figure out what
Right.
shifted in the Filipino psyche that suddenly it's acceptable.
Right.
E-
Or there was a secret button that he pressed that we kind of no. I mean, the reason why I say this, Ben, and I think this is where I think
Mm,
I'm sure you all saw this. Like there were some nights I would just lie down and say like I I I I cannot recognize this, right? People
yeah,
cheering on carnage, right? Like this is not the people I know, right? And then you have friends, family friends, suddenly, I mean, and now because I'm listening a lot to the Russian exiles, for instance, emigre who left Russia because they couldn't take the whole crazy fascist situation going on, and they would say things like, "I cannot recognize this as my country anymore." Suddenly, my
yeah,
apartment, my place, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then when they were saying those things in their interviews and all, it's like suddenly it made me like, it kind of reminds of those things when people were cheering on, essentially EJK. I mean, let's just,
yeah.
and what's going on there? I mean, how did you cope with that emotionally, psychological, or just said, ano lang yan, it's a phase lang. Unfortunately, all people like, parang tao yan, may biglang may mga moments ka na medyo kalat ka, di ba? And then you kind of gather yourself. Like, what is your understanding of that? Without, of course, we're not here to judge our people because we're all, we
Yeah.
are the same cause. I'm just saying, like, for some of us, we're still wrapping our head around, like, how did we allow for tens of thousands of cases to reportedly? I mean,
Yeah.
in any other country, I would imagine there would be massive protests. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I saw shocks from people. Even my friends in Vietnam were shocked by that. It's like, wait, you're not even a democracy. I mean, you get what I'm saying? Like, this is not even a question of democracy. It's a question of life and human dignity, etc. Yeah. Yep. Sorry for getting a little bit drama about this. You know, I'm because that for me was one of the, you know, critical junctures in my own political consciousness.
You know what? I understood that more, like that mentality or that psyche when we did the campaign, like when we
I see.
house campaigns. That's when I understood how a lot or a majority of the people make a decision or make their opinion known about a lot of political issues. And us having a political opinion about things is actually quite a privilege, and it's quite rare that people get to talk about what we talk about. And
right.
and there are actually a lot of factors on the ground, like you have the factor of people really just needing to get by, and they really don't care about who wins or who loses or who is the president, and much less know what a president does or a president is capable of. Like,
Should do, yeah.
no, there are people who think that a president is just a popularity contest, and then it's not his problem if we have problems. Like if we can't eat, or if we cannot get a job, or we cannot get to work on time and have decent public transport. There are some people who really have no idea about what the presidency entails, much less the responsibility or the culpability, like the liability of the acts done by the president. And then you have some people who just really go with the popular opinion, like if their neighbor is
Yeah.
pro Duterte or pro Marcos, maybe because they have utang with their neighbor, they're gonna agree with them.
Right.
Or maybe it's an inaanak situation, magkumare. And
Right.
this factor about hiya and
Yeah, of course.
pakikisama
Right.
in the community. When you're in the community where your houses are like on top of each other or really side by
Right.
side,
Proximate.
can't you can't help you
Group
cannot
think.
have a separate opinion. Like
Yeah,
you can
group think talaga, herd
yeah.
think. Yeah, which is by the way happens to every class and every race. Like Wall Street had group think, and then they had the whole breakdown into. So we're not
Yeah.
trying to orientalize or say this is a this class issue or feeling. No. It's a human nature thing, and it has to do with evolutionary biology. Because back in the day, if you're ostracized in the community, you're gonna die. You're gonna be hungry, or you're gonna be eaten by a lion. So it's in our DNA to be able to try our best to belong. That sense of belonging is very important, especially, of course, among more indigent communities. You cannot be the isolated philosopher. It just doesn't work, right? So, but of course, I mean, and this is where Ben permit me to come in. I mean, I wrote a whole book about making sense why Duterte won to begin with. And one of the things I always emphasize is, and please, feel free to disagree with me, is that there were also systemic failures, big time, including under the Aquino administrations, etc., when it comes to justice, rule of law. You get what I'm saying? And then, again, I'm not here to point fingers, but there are a lot of people out there saying, I'm not necessarily sold on the Duterte project thing, but, I just want something to get done because I feel hindi naayos yan. Now, obviously, I was with Attorney Carranza, the other week, and we discussed how this is also a legacy of the dictatorship years. No, we had a judiciary which was, so we can debate about the failures of the judicial institutions, but the thing is, of course, in the Philippines, pag elections, ibe-blame mo yung mga latest. So whatever was kulang, ibe-blame mo lahat kay Aquino because he just happened to be the last guy before Duterte, right? That I disagree. Na it's all fault of Aquino. I completely disagree with that. But I understand that this also comes from desperation and sense that there's no alternative. And you're absolutely right. That's why we have to be compassionate, right? It's also lack of sense of agency, right? The sense that I can have my own independent opinion, I can advocate for opinion. And this is where you and I have the privilege for that, which is very unfortunate. This should not be a privilege. This should be an innate right for every Filipino. But the raw reality is that most of our kababayans are yet to develop that full sense of agency that they deserve and they're entitled to under any democratic constitution, right? So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think this is a very important thing. Now, I want to say this, Ben. You're free to disagree with me. You see, there was a Latin American diplomat who told me last year when one of these major elections in Latin America was happening. You know, I'm very fuego and Latino matters. Like I always compare, right? This is really close to my heart. You can see in Brazil. No, I mean, he said something like, alam mo, malaking chance natin if we are a little bit more mea culpa. You know, kind of accept medyo nakulang tayo in the past when we were in power. Remember, a lot of leftist populists were in power in you know, in Peru, in Brasilia, etc. And the idea was, if you want to win back people and push out, you know, the clowns, essentially, you have to have a little bit of self-awareness and some genuine apologia. And this is where, Ben, again, you can disagree with me. Like, the sense of some people is that whether in the communications or whether in personal posts of a lot of people associated with the opposition, including with the Lenny camp, is that they feel there's not enough sense of recognition of the shortcomings, including under, you know, like the Aquino administration, etc. Again, it's complete nonsense to blame them for everything that went wrong. This is Marcos' dictatorship. But still, diba, I think our people were looking for some sort of recognition, and it's the refusal to recognize is I think something that alienates a lot of people, including people who are not definitely fan of Duterte or Marcos at all. I'm just throwing this out, Ben. You know, feel free to disagree. I don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think we could have done better, a lot better. Our primary enemy was time, of course. But I think it's also a part of like a systemic failure to plan ahead. Like, I think whether or not it's Lenny who's running as the standard bearer of the opposition should have had a system in place to support a presidential run of anyone who
If
it will
any
support.
opposition, exactly.
Anyone, whether it's Lenny or whether it was anyone else. But we didn't have that. I mean, I was not part of the Liberal Party in 2021 when I came in
Most
for
kakamping are not, right? I mean, there's so many kakambis who didn't vote for the Liberal Party without naming names.
So time, exactly. So time, and then of course the machinery was not there. And then without maybe without being too specific about it, you know, the messaging was not on point, and time was a big factor for that as well. I think some of the messages that we wanted to carry were already taken by the time she announced. So,
I mean, like the plagiarized kayo na ibang campaign.
Exactly. So, I mean, we had the pitch for one.
It happens. Yeah.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say. I mean, you can only say so much.
Yeah. May mga templates. The university, a little bit
konti
limited.
lang naman yung mga catchwords na.
Correct.
Okay. So,
unahan lang talaga yan eh.
unahan lang talaga. So, not accusing anyone of any plagiarism. Pero naunahan lang talaga, and then you have to come up with something that is.
I see. That's what I'm saying. The criticism about parang medyo late masyado nag-announce. Yun nga pala. Ano rin, unahan, first come, first serve din sa.
Yeah, so the color, the message, ang hirap. Yeah. So, I think time was a big factor talaga. And then, syempre organization-wise, because it's all volunteers, you cannot help but some, you know, volunteer groups will do their own thing. And then because we let it, no? So I think if it were a tighter ship as well, we didn't really want to restrain kasi the creative freedom. But I think, I mean, personally speaking, this is me, not, you know, the campaign speaking. I think a campaign is should be run like a, you know, a corporate structure, not a democracy. Like, you can't have everyone have a say.
Dapat may organizational efficiency.
Yeah, so it has to be like, you know, someone has to call the shots, and then should be okay with offending some people who might not be okay with that direction. But I think yun parang there should be a bit more rigor in a way, or parang restraint. A lot of the volunteers can be emotional. I mean, we know what's at stake anyway, but there has to be, you know, a better way to rein people in a bit and then make them, make them be okay with taking a different approach, no? Kaya nahirapan din kami dun sa radical love na message. I think we'll discuss it later. But
Yeah.
people were really emotional, and then the feeling was like, it's like for 5 years of the Duterte administration, you've been restrained, so you've been
Right.
gaslit, you cannot talk to
Misunderstand.
anyone. This was the first time that this is para October 7-ish was the first time when people were in the same room, and I had to remind them that, you don't have to apologize for your political beliefs in the Zoom room. All of you support the same candidate. And then parang it dawned upon people na, oh my God, this is like, for the first time in 5 years, I don't have to apologize for not supporting Duterte because everyone in the room
We're
supports.
gaslighted.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it
Absolutely.
was very emotional for people. We had to, parang the first month of the campaign, medyo ano yon, parang psychological debriefing of people.
Yeah, medyo anonymous. Lahat ng mga na-traumatize ni
Yeah,
Digimon.
exactly.
I can imagine. I can
Ganun,
imagine.
ganun.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, how did you make sure walang double agents yan? Like, I mean, if you have
Oh,
20,000 volunteers, you never know, right? You
I
tell me.
actually, I don't remember if ma'am said anything about it, but I mean,
Yun yan, di
na
ba?
met her, parang
Sabotage.
welcome everywhere, parang ganun. Pero we really operated on faith talaga, like
Yeah.
sometimes blind faith. But ang inisip ko din naman, like, which, parang when a double agent comes in, medyo matatakot sila kasi yung mga kakamping talagang ano sila eh.
Baka mabardagulan yan.
Oo, talaga palaban na talaga eh. So parang
Mafia style eh. Like, once
yeah,
you get in, like, careful na, yeah.
yeah.
That's good. Because speaking of organizational efficiency, you have to avoid sabotage too, right? Like that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
sometimes wonder like, what is this campaign doing? Baka double agent yung, I'm not referring to a campaign per se, but like sometimes there's super bloopers that make you realize like, or make you like parang question like, what's going on there? Ito double agent pa, sabotage pa yung nangyari, di ba? Or wrong saboteur ba? Now so the campaign starts and there is a bump, right? There is a bump in her numbers. Suddenly she's now in the conversation, right? How euphoric was that? And did that euphoria kind of also make you a little bit, less realistic about what is the next, diba? I mean, like, what's going on there? Because may bump and then suddenly she's like, number 2. This is already January, February, right? What's going on there? Just to trace the arc of, consciousness realization. Yeah.
From October to February. So those are like a lot of preliminary things. Like, I think the big bump was around December. Parang meron siyang 6 to 20 or something.
Yes. I mean, the numbers reflected by January. Now. That's what I mean.
And then by January, we found out.
Reflect na numbers. Yeah, exactly.
So, first, it was a validation of all the efforts because there were so many things happening. I think the first thing that we did, well, in October kasi we organized this motorcade, like nationwide caravan. Right. Now we got a lot of, doon meron mga, mga double agents in a way or saboteurs.
Exactly, yes, sabotage.
There was parang may money daw inside the, we were giving away money daw in the motorcade. Wala nga kaming pera. Right. So, we had like a huge issue around that because it's accused of bribery. And then
Mom Leni also said something about medyo tanggapin nyo na lang. I remember, medyo may medyo tayo dyan, di ba? Abogado ka te, di ba? Like careful lang, di ba?
Tapos we had the lugawan, yung mga nationwide lugawan. So it was all volunteer effort. And then so it was validating na it actually worked. No? After 3 months of waiting na parang it actually got pushed up. Yeah.
Was Ma'am Leni also elated by that? Because I know she was quite frustrated. Like, sana naman medyo dun tayo bago ako,
You know what? She's very chill. She was very chill about it. I mean, we don't really interact on a daily basis, but
from the limited interactions and all, yeah.
She really believed na kaya siya. It
Kaya
can
siya,
be
yeah.
done. I guess people really draw strength from her because she's really sobrang chill. I mean, she believed that it can be done. No? So
Which is very
people were
important in your leader. If your leader shows doubt, medyo mahirap na yun, diba?
So kapit talaga until the end. Everyone was like, we can do it. So before the official campaign, I think February 8th, tama ba? We started getting a lot
Right,
more
right. The campaign.
celebrities, all of these endorsements, all of these political, switching around happening as well. So
Rufus Rodriguez, and then you have, of course,
yeah,
the Speaker of the House, a lot of supposed Duterte people supporting her.
yeah.
Muslim Mindanao, we had big support also coming from ML. How did you feel about that? Parang, wait, nag-flip ba ito or may fractures now within the Duterte? Because you also had Duterte kind of bashing BBM, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, kasi gusto niya anak niya or himself, right? Kind of
Yeah.
bongo. How are you feeling about it? Like, parang pwede to, parang mag-fracture lahat to, di ba? Yung parang gano'n.
Yeah, parang
Di ba? It
I was
not impossible. Talagang the dam will break, di ba? Yeah.
I was open to many possibilities, but I always thought of the volunteers because
Correct.
ito yung I think this is where most of the dissensions happen when you go to the ground level. And like for example, in terms of I'm not privy to it, of course, but I'm talking just about the aftermath or the
Yeah, just whatever. Yeah, yeah.
context.
Sure.
When I think Pantaleon Alvarez shifted
Right.
his support, his Partido Reforma support to Lenny, parang nagkaroon ng questions among volunteers. Why is Pantaleon Alvarez? Why are we allowing Pantaleon Alvarez, who
Right.
supported Duterte and insulted Lenny, to support Lenny? Parang ganon. So you have to explain that, to the volunteers, especially local volunteers. Because for many of these volunteers, this is the first time that they're getting involved in a political campaign,
Right.
as in on the ground directly and at such a big level, like a national campaign, and you have so much at stake, diba? So you really have to be careful in laying it out and welcoming all supporters without alienating your own base, no? Yun. So you need that.
Balancing the idealism with the real politic. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
I always say, this is not Norway, all right? We're not in New Zealand. Like, ang daling, I mean, kung nasa New Zealand tayo, iba talagang usapan. Baka lahat tayo nasa gobyerno na ngayon, di ba? But we're not eh. This is the Philippines. So you have to deal with the reality of it while sticking to your core convictions. Obviously, I mean, fairness to Ma'am Leni, I never saw her like, oh, you're coming in, sige, we'll do this. No, I didn't see that kind of quid pro quo in a warring way. So I think, but you're right. That's the thing. If you want to have a participatory, volunteer-based campaign, it's inevitable that the more idealist elements will question some of the inevitable, difficult choices, hard choices, as Hilar would put it, will come in. Now, I want to talk about the Turkish connection here. Like, what's going on with the radical love? By the way, thank you to you. Now I kind of got to know more about where's this coming from. Now, obviously, I immediately thought about Rumi. It was one of my favorite. Actually, it's Persian, but it's can be found there in Konya in Turkey. So a part of me feels maybe there's a connection to Rumi and just the kind of divine radical. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because of course this pertains to a mayoral victory against the Erdogan populists, etc. Tell me a little bit about that. Yeah, like how did you guys decide to bring that into the Philippine national politics context?
Yeah, so when we first, actually I wasn't part of the group that decided.
Or how did it come, and then you processed it in that sense?
Yeah, so when we received that communication that we are gonna push this radical love messaging, and if you remember, she had a video about mas radical magmahal, because it's a call for volunteers to stop bashing supporters of other groups. So
I see.
of course, the first thing any comms person would ask is that where's the strategy coming from? Like, what's the basis for the strategy? What are the numbers saying? Have we studied this messaging? Because for me, it looked foreign. Like when you say radical, not everyone can understand what
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
radical, right?
May
And
pagka-left, baka maretag ka.
exactly, so
Diba?
yun
Yun
yung
nga eh,
first
parang,
parang
right.
radical sounds left wing, but eventually it became a buzzword. I think it just garnered traction because Lenny used it. And
Influencer.
I mean kami naman, I mean I'm a good soldier. So if you're gonna tell me we're gonna use radical magmahal,
But
even
how
if
did you feel about it? So you had your kind of, but you had kind of like, I'm
I
not 100% sure about whether this works in the Philippine. You had that, yeah.
I like the idea, of course. I like the idea. I think it's the problem is that it's the way that it was worded. No, I wouldn't say radical
So
because
what would you have said? Unconditional love?
I
Diba? Like,
haven't
let's go
actually
Chris
thought about
Aquino,
this.
right? Unconditional love or something.
I actually haven't thought about it. But how would you say a radical magmahal in something that connects more, you know? So, but I did like the message and the idea behind it because that's
Right.
exactly what we needed to tell our supporters. No, it's actually ano siya, internal messaging campaign
Correct,
for
correct, correct.
volunteers and supporters na parang
Yun yung dapat nasa poster doon pagpasok niyo. Ay, wag niyo i-bash yung mga bardagulan na yan, di ba? Like,
wag
get
kayong
out there.
makipagbardagulan
Right,
niya.
right, right.
And I mean, even now naman, we see na it hasn't been fully imbibed in
Of
the
course, you should tell me. I'm
diba?
being bashed by some of your volunteers all the time. I was like, wait lang,
Yeah.
akala ko radical magmahal ka. Nasaan na yan, di ba? But
So
no bad blood. You know me, I'm sport.
yeah,
It's Twitter, I'm wild, they're wild, it's okay. But yeah,
it's
go.
part of the critical discourse na lang.
Nakita ko how you cop out of yung mga pardagulan between me and some of your volunteers and supporters. But, I'm sport because I understand emotions are high, there's a lot of
Yeah,
frustration, at mahirap maging progresibo sa
yeah,
Tapo-dominated system. I think people always forget that. It's super hard. And running government is also super hard. Running
yeah,
is super hard. So marami dyan na opinionated without any appreciation of scale and the magnitude of the difficulties and all.
yeah,
Even if I have not run any campaign, as a scholar, I have tried to learn. And of course, marami tayong nakausap throughout the years. Diba? So,
yeah,
so going back to this, the reason I ask about it is because you have done a lot of qualitative research, and I'm
yeah,
sure you're kind of familiar with the prevailing sociology of the voters because I don't know if you remember during that time when at first I heard it, I was like, okay, I see where this is coming from, but we know that competence is more important because I know one of the things that the campaign emphasized was yung tapat, di ba? Tapat na gobyerno, kahit tapat
yeah,
na panalo tayo. Parang, but yun nga like if you look at the surveys, that would have sold well in 2010. And
yeah,
of course, we're all against corruption, just to be very clear about it, 100%. I'm just saying in terms of viability for voters. But we saw in 2019 and 2022, the surveys were suggesting husay, competence, getting things done was far more important. So I felt that was kind of a tactical communication mistake, and I was very open about it. I was just hoping you guys don't take it personal or anything like that. I was saying it as someone who was looking at the numbers, the research, etc. So I don't know. I mean, I just want to throw it there. So radical love. Okay, I understand, but for me also, I think there was too much emphasis on tapat, which is absolutely important. But I just don't think that was the kind of hook you needed to get the attention of voters in that
yeah.
zeitgeist. Yeah.
I think what lacked in that message was the reason to believe, and we were running against Bongbong, who had Ilocos Norte as the model. Like
Yeah.
yung pagbangon, the promise of pagbangon is
Right.
so
Pabangon
you
tayo.
had all of these windmills, diba? Parang,
Correct.
even if he really didn't build those, but that was a very strong imagery of
Correct.
pagbangon, like, and of course all of the messaging around the golden era and all of these lies about
Italian.
I can see naman na it's a lie, diba? All of the
Yeah, please go ahead. I mean, like, unless it's a true that I don't know about, please tell us, di ba?
exactly, diba? Parang ngayon hindi mo na alam kung ano pwede mong sabihin.
Don't apologize for
So,
saying facts. Okay, absolutely
so
go ahead. Yeah.
diba, all of the supposed promise of the former Marcos presidency that hindi natuloy because of the EDSA revolution na itutuloy daw, and the Taliano gold na hindi naman totoo. So those were being used as like, ito yung concrete example of what we can do.
Right.
Even if they're really based on nothing but, propaganda on YouTube and everything. Same as with Sarah. So Sarah was like, she had a strong, parang, strong concrete example of Davao City.
Yeah, Exhibit A, the whole
Exhibit A, Davao
Yeah,
City.
yeah.
And of course, the legacy of the father, which is a big thing for both of them. Like Sarah's father, Bongbong's father, they all,
Right.
larger than life figures that we don't have. I mean, Secretary Jesse I don't think he reached his peak, diba,
Yeah,
politically.
definitely, which is one of the
Yeah,
biggest
so,
tragedies. Yeah, yeah. He would have been someone special. Yeah.
and then Kamsur or Naga City is not as
Davao
prominent.
level. Yeah, yeah.
And as in Davao
But why
or
didn't you exaggerate it too? Yung mga ganun. Like you could have just said, "Look at Kamsur," and then I
yeah,
don't.
we were talking
Why
about
not play
Naga.
that game too? I mean, I'm not saying, but you know, what I'm saying, like, wasn't there the
Oo.
temptation, like, kung, kasi diba the Davao thing supposedly they're Singapore of Asia.
Yeah.
Lawag was supposed to be the Switzerland of. I mean, if you're
Kasi
gonna
we have
play
to
that
lie.
game, let's go. Kamsur is the Sweden of Asia. You know, progressive social. The reason I
Yeah.
said Ben is, I saw papers by international students talking about the Robredo model. Thai
Yeah.
students talking about. So actually, if you look at it from a public administration studies perspective, Kamsur actually is very successful, especially Naga, the Naga model.
Naga City.
That's my biggest first. I felt the Naga model was not sold as much as it should have, while the other models were definitely oversold, right? Yeah.
Like Isko had Manila also, diba? So
Of course.
so you're competing against Ilocos region and then Davao City and then City of Manila.
Right.
Daming pinagawa ni Isko before the election
In
para
fairness to him, yeah. I mean, whether you agree with him or not, yeah.
And then we have Naga City. And then I mean Naga City is a bit parang Kamsur kasi is controlled by another political family. William Fertes, diba? So parang it's being used against her pero hindi naman niya hawak yun before.
Right.
Like, diba, may mga lumalabas na numbers about Kamsur's poverty incidents na people don't understand kasi na iba yung Naga City sa Kamsur.
Kaya
And you wouldn't know
Naga
unless
model sana just to
exactly.
it should have been aggressively about Naga because Vico Soto also mentioned that na ang isa sa mga iniidolo niya or yung mga inspiration niya si Jesse Robredo and the Naga model. So yeah, that would have been interesting.
Hindi naman siya nag-endorse.
That's why kinakancel din siya, di ba? parang daming galit kay Vico, sa akin.
Hindi naman ako galit kay Vico, pero syempre hindi siya nag-endorse. So,
yeah. I mean, ipit din siya, di ba? Kapartido niya si Isko, which umalis na rin siya. Mamaya na natin ano yung si Vico. but going back to this, no, the reason I'm saying that is, bakit hindi yun nga, like saning husay Naga model ang feeling ko sana mas na-emphasize. And I've been saying this for quite some time because may substance naman eh. Hindi naman ito yung, Yamashita Italiano. I mean, hindi. It's not exaggerated. No, it's really some success. And I don't know, politika populism. Kailangan mag-exaggerate sometimes siguro. I don't know, right? As I said nga populism is the only game in town. It's just a question of which variety you want. A progressive populism, a little bit authoritarian populism, etc. Now, speaking of the campaign, what were like the highlights of the campaign? Were like the super high and the super lows, etc. before the election day itself, which we should discuss separately. So, yeah.
The highlight of the campaign would definitely be the rallies. And I think that really is the turning point for many people. Because that's also probably the reason why we didn't focus on Naga City so much, because we really focused on showing proof. Show of force talaga. No? So we really focused on this bigness, to show bigness everywhere. And I think it worked. I mean, for me, it's a win because we started at we were estimating 3.5 million voters when she started running.
Yeah.
And then to get to 15, that's like a lot. And um, and with the rallies, it's actually, I think it's a bit accidental. We really didn't expect that
Yeah.
people will come. I remember, so they did the Naga. I wasn't there for the Naga proclamation for the start of the campaign. The next one after that was Quezon City. So this was the first Metro Manila
Right. I think kay
campaign.
si Joy Belmonte medyo nag-drop by lang siya, nag-cameo. Yun ba yun?
I don't think she was there, but she approved.
Nag-cameo siya, cameo lang or something like that.
I don't remember if she did
Ay,
a
like parang
cameo,
yun
but
na parang nag-cameo siya pero parang hindi or anyway, sige, go ahead. Yeah.
so I remember the night or the week before, ma'am was like saying na, sure ba kayo na we'll ask for a permit for 10,000 because baka walang
Darating.
pumunta naman. So
Wala
parang,
lang one kayo. Yeah.
yeah, but when we got there were like 20,000 probably people, no? And wala kaming invite. There were no invites. We said it's an exclusive event in the tent for the proclamation, for the Metro Manila Proclamation rally
Right.
of UC. But people just came and wanted to be part of it, and then UC, suddenly they had to have parang yung for the motorcade, yung tawag doon, parang van na truck,
Yeah.
yung flatbed truck, to have Lenny and the family and Kiko
Right, right.
around, no, which was not part of the original plan, because with people, they didn't really expect people to come.
Right,
So
right.
that was the first.
But
And
Pasig
then,
was really the one, no? Like Pasig is pink. That was the
yeah,
insane.
Pasig was like insane. But before Pasig, we had Cavite.
Oh, right,
Which,
right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is
So
of course created its own, interesting
yeah, so
discussion.
Cavite was like against all odds rally.
Yes, literally. Yeah, yeah.
Was the end, parang the, of course, the provincial family, the political dynasty there was against Lenny, and well, not really for her at that time, pero eventually come out against her. And then ang daming mga construction along the road. So parang sinasadya ba to or what? And then people came, and it was full, like the whole General Trias Stadium, I think. It was full of people, and people waited for her to arrive. Like I was there mga, I think, 7. She arrived close to midnight, I think. And people just waited. And then nung dumating na siya, nabuhayan yung mga tao. Kasi parang 9 o'clock na, dapat nandun na siya, tapos wala pa rin. And then medyo nag-aano na yung mga tao, nawala na ng energy. And then when they heard about what happened, biglang nagising yung mga tao. So
Second wind, yeah.
second win. And then, so I think at that point, that's when we saw that, hey, we have to really maximize the optics of all of this, because number one, it's true, it happens. The other camp is not doing it, like not the same way, at least, that we did it.
Right.
And then they started doing it as well. So parang they also did their own rallies and show of force and everything. So I thought, parang at that point, we thought na eto na, parang there is malakas yung laban, no? And we are the number 2. Hindi na kami yung trailing behind Isko
Right.
or Manny. Mhm.
And when was there a moment na you felt yes we can? It's like medyo Obama, yes we can, like especially nung makapagal.
Rojas was her
Yeah, yeah,
birthday.
yeah. Daming tao, di ba? That was a lot of people, yeah.
Rojas was her birthday. So Pasig, definitely Pasig was big. Pasig, parang dun mo, actually all throughout naman the campaign, the
Yeah.
energy of people were high, and then it was constantly going up, no?
Yeah. What was
And
the
then
peak ba? What's the peak number based on
peak
your
was meeting the Avance, like the day
Oh,
before,
really?
2 days before. That's like, I think, 750,000.
250.
Ayala and Makati Avenue. So that was the official estimate, I think, 750,000. Pasay was like 400,000. It was
400,
like a
yeah.
huge stretch of I think Makapagal.
Right.
That was the point na parang, yes, we can, because that was her birthday.
Yeah.
And then all of these celebrities came in, and you can't lie na people love celebrities, di ba? Filipinos are talaga, when it comes to celebrity culture, talagang very important. So
Showbiz tayo, chika minute. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I have a question on the celebrities before I talk about something else. Google Trends,
sure.
right? Just giving a kind of heads up where's the next question. Um, okay, you had celebrity endorses, but there's also the kind of, well, some would say parang medyo late yung ibang celebrity endorsers. Was there again? I don't want to put you on the spot, but was there kind of a disappointment? Like I saw some of them like endorsing like 48 hours before, as I said. Remember, di ba yung term ko is diminishing elasticity of voting. Yung voters ability to change will get very low by the time it's like 1 month before. It's almost zero, right? So if you want to make a big impact, it's 2 months or 3 months. And I felt parang ano yun, parang pro forma lang yan. Again, we're not here to disparage people. I mean, I appreciate some of the celebrities putting, but I just felt like hindi, medyo dapat 1 month ago pa sana to, di ba? Again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just had to be honest about that because that was my assessment back then. Like,
for me naman,
safe ba sila or like confused ba sila? Like, what's going on there? Like,
I think so for some of them, may mga contractual obligations.
Yeah. I mean, we're not gonna name names, obviously. This is just general. Yeah.
And then for some of them, they were really parang weighing if it's worth it for their career, I guess. So, and for everyone who did it, I think we really salute them because it was a big risk. I think
pinaka-celebrity na parang won your heart, like, wow, respect. Like 3, give me 3 at least.
I think Vice won.
Okay, I remember she was really all in.
She went to the stage
super pink and all that, like blonde hair. Yes,
production number talaga. So, but I think that was very risky. And then the younger ones, Nadine Lustre.
Okay, yeah, right, interesting. And they look beautiful in pink, right? I mean, it's like, see, they really look beautiful. Yeah.
Actually, marami. And even, Andrea Brillantes.
Right.
So she was very young. I don't think people that age care. I didn't think that people
supposedly, yeah, exactly. And she
really was she was really into it, and she wanted to do the rally. She wanted to do the house to house.
In fairness,
she was really a big supporter. I have other favorites. Can I?
Malalaki, yeah. Tell me about some malalaki. I mean, now si General Luna, yung speech niya, no? Yeah, he was very passionately. I mean, I really like his speeches, etc. Because as an objective analyst, I had to attend different rallies. So it just happened that I saw that. I was in the meeting the advance of BBM and Sara also, just to be clear. I went. No, but you were saying, sa mga lalaki, sino mga gusto mo dun sa mga celebrities?
I think Coach Yang is probably one.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Because I think that captured a market that we didn't get the other celebrities, like basketball player or coach. So that's one. And then Piolo, right. Pascual. He did an ad. He actually did a couple of ads.
Yeah, I saw kay Piolo. Yeah, in fairness to him.
Piolo, and then Daniel Padilla, I think.
Yeah, interesting.
My favorite though is Sex Bomb, Rochelle. Rochelle Pangilinan.
Kasi todo bigay. Todo.
No, because she's a gay icon.
Right.
And then I think that's because she's been on TV, Eat Bulaga for a long time. That's like
big,
a market that is important to tap, no? So super. That was for me parang that was
so you covered both the ABS with Vice Ganda and then the Eat Bulaga side, like you got it all covered. No, I was like, wow, that's impressive. That's very impressive. Volunteers. Like, wow, right? That was one of the wow factors, right? As far as election is concerned. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then, I'm not trying to pour, ice bucket or something. But the one concern also was with some of the volunteers, baka ang dating was a little bit hubristic with some of them, not all.
Yeah.
The one in Baguio, in my home city, there's still a debate about what happened exactly there. Kasi of course, I was critical about the shouting and all, and I felt that was unfair. But the story I also get from the other side is parang may pagka, let me educate you ang nangyari. Like, was there kind of a quality control problem with some of the SOPs of the volunteers? Kasi, it's great to volunteer, but going there and kind of lecturing people doesn't win them over, does it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I would have to say that the whole volunteer thing was miraculous. That we
No
we
question
had
about it.
that's the
Fantastic.
first thing. Parang, and we're thankful for everyone
And
who
they should be
volunteered.
thankful to you. Malaki. Yeah, I got you.
And then for Team Leni Robredo, for example, we had like 120 plus thousand volunteers across the country
120,000 volunteers for Lenny.
in all
Wow.
in as many
Insane.
provinces as we can get volunteers.
Wow. In
So,
Davao, you had volunteers.
yeah, we had that. Yeah, we have Davao
Tawag is-
volunteers as well.
Yeah.
And then so
Wow.
there are other organizations then,
Correct.
right? So you have like dapat si Lenny, and then you have Isang Bayan,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Bayan.
Yeah.
So aside from our 100 plus, they all have their own other volunteers in every
Correct,
region.
correct.
And
A lot, no?
yung mga nasa ground talaga, I mean, many of these people don't really go online and you don't get to hear them. And
Correct,
I
correct.
really appreciate a lot of the people on the ground because they really are the frontline warriors. Of course, in the beginning, there are some, hindi naman siya lahat, no? But siguro for the people who are volunteering on the ground for the first time, there are first timer, I guess, lapses na parang this is the natural way they talk to other people.
Yeah. It's an
And
uncharted territory also.
oo, na
No
parang
one has done it. Tell me another campaign in recent Philippine elections that has anything close to that. I'm sorry, none, right? So I think for medyo my beginners rust. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
And then so of course they don't tell us what happens on the ground. I mean, not all of them tell us what happens on the ground, but we would receive like reports na ito yung nangyari. And then so we devised a way na parang actually we had like so the campaign had a gabay sa pakikipag-usap. We developed all of these learning modules. We delivered it in many different ways. So may mga in-person trainings, may mga online trainings. Meron pa kaming LMS na ginawa. Like if you want to talk to people on the ground, house to house, this is how you do it. Or this is how you say it. This is how you open up.
Right.
You don't tell people, na vote for Lenny right away. You ask them about their circumstances, like really connect to people. So, I would have to say that meron talagang ibang volunteers na maiingay online, especially, and some of them would tend to sound a bit more, I guess, hoity-toity or bardagulan about.
Yeah, which I mean, questioning grammar of ISCO, those things. I just felt it's too.
Parang
mali yun.
Oo. Pero on the ground, you have a lot of volunteers talaga who are dedicated at really learning how to do it. And I think a lot of the wins or the gains that we had are really won on the ground talaga.
Correct.
Like election day. Because parang you can't di ba, you were mentioning kanina Google Trends, but it cannot measure everything, especially if people don't have access to the internet. Like, let's say, Visayas Mindanao, not everyone has access to the internet in
Yeah, like what was going on with this whole Google Trends things? Because okay, I want to put it this way, Ben, because some colleagues and friends of mine are in the Pulse Asias and SWS of this work.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna talk about the other ones, but you get what I'm saying. So I just felt there's some people attacking the integrity of people that I know, I've known of colleagues, and their way of attacking that was, anchoring it in Google Trends, which I felt was a scientific. I just felt this is not the way to fight for democracy or to win it. I mean, if you want to insist Google Trends is correct, okay, but there was kind of a character assassination for some people against some of our good colleagues and friends, and that hurt us. And I felt some people actually owe apology. Like, okay, if you don't agree with the statistic, okay, go on. And but like we just felt things got a little bit too nasty and all. Disagree with
Yeah.
Ben. I mean, again, I understand you want to keep your volunteers, your voters, hopeful, especially if some of the surveys say the gap is too big. I get it, but there's a way to do it, right? And I just feel there's some people who claim to speak for Lenny and for the pink movement, and yet they were just nasty about it. Yun lang sa akin, and yun lang.
Yeah.
I just feel that that doesn't reflect well on the movement, and it alienated a lot of people when it shouldn't have, because like they're folks in the Pulse Asia movement who fought against the
Yeah.
Marcos, the whole thing. I mean, yun lang. I mean, I just felt that's not the way for it. And so part of me was saying, sana there's more internal checking or like calling out some of these people, and I was just waiting for that. I mean, I know sometimes I tag Lenny, who follows me on Twitter, like, ma'am, baka naman you want to say something on this, but I know it's not her temperament to try to do something public and all. But I just want you guys to understand. I mean, you guys, whatever. I'm trying to do actually a favor here, which is, hey, because I know these are not truly reflective of how Lenny thinks, how you think, a lot of people, how Bama I know it's not. So I just felt they're doing a disservice to the movement, unfortunately, and alienating. Kaya I always say to some of the friends na galit na, ay, ito mga dilawan. I said, no. Compartmentalize. There's some problematic elements there who claim to be, but it's not like any group doesn't have those black sheeps, right? But don't lose hope in the entire movement, or don't disparage the whole pink movement. I hope, at least I know the reason you're here in this podcast, because you understood always where I come from.
Yeah.
My sis Lenny also always understood where I come from with my criticism and all, right? So yun lang. I just wanted to put that out, Ben. Please go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, we see these numbers regularly. Like, we have our own surveys, of
Internal,
course.
exactly. Yeah.
And then you see the Pulse Asia, the SWS survey, the other groups as well. And I think at that point it was a point of frustration, because
I get it. Yeah.
the numbers don't match up to the images. That's one. And then so there are some factions or groups who saw Google Trends as a way to kind of make image match the numbers. And I think it was a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
At that point, because you can you can placate your base, but at the same time they might feel that they might become complacent about not working harder. So I've seen the Google Trends report. I've seen how it was used. It was not an official
Of course. Again, let's be very clear.
And,
It was not I never saw Lenny or you or anyone of let's be very clear. In fairness, yeah.
And I think for some people it was a way to cope at that point in time. But we've internally naman, we've always discussed na you cannot rely on all of these digital
data.
Yeah, because a lot of our population, a lot of our voting population don't have access to these electronic devices anyway.
They have free Facebook, free TikTok, but not free Google. Exactly. That's very important. Yeah.
And then so we're also looking at other numbers and other data, not just election data, but there was a survey, I think, published by SWS around, or Pulse Asia, around the internet habits or the communication habits of Filipinos, like sources of news for Filipinos.
Yung TV, Facebook,
TV, radio,
mas lampas sa radyo, di ba?
Yeah. So we use that a lot as well, and we use that for a good number of our strategies, like radio ads as well, newspaper ads, like the non-digital ones. But yeah, so we highly respect the the survey organizations and actually rely on some of their
Right, of course,
data
yeah.
products because they're very reputable. So yeah.
So come election day, were you shocked by the results? How do you, I mean, I know a few months later, I kind of made a comment like, and that's parang acceptance face ka na, di ba, or something like that. Because I'll be honest, Ben, like I saw people having PTSD almost, right? I mean, just to be honest, I was not the happiest man on earth, but yeah, I had to do what I had to do right after election, break it down. But I saw a lot of friends were just like, wow, like, zoned out. There's some people who are still not back in a certain sense. But with you, in fairness, I saw within a few months, nasa gym ka na, we can talk about you're taking care of skincare. Like, is it because to begin with, you had an appreciation of the texture of reality of the actual numbers on the ground, etc.
No, I
Anyway,
think
none of this is to say walang vote buying, walang all of this. Unfortunately, yeah, our elections are not in any sense totally free and fair. I mean, vote buying is a huge problem. Iba pang usapan yung NAMFREL and the whole accusations with the transmission. But I'm just, trying to understand, like, how did you process the whole thing? Yeah.
the first thing that happened was that I was shocked at the speed of the
Of the
transmission
transmission. So
results.
you agree that so you believe that yung gyrospondo point, which I also did vlogs on, is kind of valid, which is of course based on General Rio and Colonel diba?
Yeah.
Na parang ang bilis, within 1 hour pa lang ang dami nakapasok, when it takes 30 minutes just to do the basic SOPs after the final votes come in.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying is you have an issue still with the transmission speed and all that.
I want to understand how was
How
it possible
efficient?
to do that?
How did they end up so efficient? It's like,
And I can't get my, Comelec ID on the same day. Like,
yeah.
but that was the first thing that I felt. No, I was shocked. And then and then I was also shocked that the margin was so big. Like I didn't expect
You expect it to be like 2025, something like that.
yeah, parang not that, not half.
1531, yeah.
Yeah, so we were in the volunteer center on the
Correct.
election night because we were supposed to have election night party for the volunteers, but turned out to be a vigil. So what I felt initially was that, you have to hold space for the volunteers because they have
Even a
they're
lot.
they've gone through a lot. No, I mean I've gone through a lot,
Yeah.
but I didn't think of that right away. Like
Right.
it was not the first thing I thought about. So I thought about the volunteers first, and then it was a lot of like shepherding, hand holding, processing, and then
Being
that's when I
kuya.
got
Being
yeah,
kuya, yeah.
and then that's when I got to take care of myself, like after panon. So
Right.
parang initial shock was like probably 2 months, like May, June, because we were still processing May, June. And then I think July, I was like, okay, I think I need to have some space for myself because a lot of us gave up so much for the campaign. Like I was in my second year of law school and then I took a leave of absence for the
Because of
campaign.
that, yeah.
Parang, okay,
Personal sacrifice, yeah.
parang I need to take some time to pick up the pieces again, like, rebuild
Right.
the life that I was living before the campaign.
I'm
And
sure it even puts strain on the romantic lives probably of some people, right? I'm
yung
not
iba,
talking about you. I'm sure some people, unfortunately, like, the strain, diba? It must be
let's just say na maraming sinuwerte. Like they found love in the
the right
campaign.
person. Okay, that's good. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Actually, that's one good takeaway from the campaign for the volunteers. Para may mga nanalo sa love life. At least they
Talo
know.
sa politika pero panalo sa pagmamahal. Ayan. Pwede yan.
Well,
It's a
at
good
least
party.
they have the same values at least. No? So parang they know.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
And then, yeah.
No, please. Go ahead. You were saying, yeah.
Yeah, so parang of course we also I mean being a volunteer was full time. So I had to, I had to parang take a step back from some of my projects, mga businesses, ganun. So
Huge cost, yeah. Sacrifice.
yeah. So pero I mean for me it was worth it. Parang my way of thinking on October 7, 2021 when I was like about to jump into it was like, will I regret not
ever,
being part of this
ever.
campaign,
Yeah.
regardless of the result. And for me, I would regret not being part of it. So
Correct. Which is the
I
most
know,
important.
yeah. So I was happy I did it. It's just a matter of, okay, like getting everything back together and getting your life back together, basically.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about let's go a little bit lifestyle here, right? What was your self-care strategy here? Because I'm sure a lot of people had to come up with really serious self-care. Biglang yung iba nag-yoga na, marami nag-gym bigla, tumaas yung iba, yung mga maraming pera, nag-abroad na lang, I don't know, nag-French
Yeah.
Riviera, you know what I'm saying? What about you? What was your lifestyle self-help strategy?
During the campaign or after?
No, not after the campaign. I mean,
After.
I'm sure the
So,
physical, emotional strain was not a joke, right? Or sige, even during campaign, how did you keep healthy enough?
parang
Right?
hindi ako healthy during the campaign.
Like, kaya nga I
Parang,
said, let's just skip it
kasi
because I'm not sure you guys were that, like,
diba, parang,
I don't think they're taking care of themselves. Medyo ganun
oh, parang
yeah.
wala kang time. So after, ayun, finally found time. I do yoga. I also teach yoga. So I went back
Right.
to
It's
yoga.
your Twitter handle.
Yeah,
Sige, yeah.
yoga with Ben. And then I went to the gym again. I think parang gym is like
Back
the
up.
way I appreciate it now compared to before. Now
Really?
it's really more about my mental health. Like, getting to move my body,
Yeah.
being in that
The
present in
hormones,
that
good
moment.
hormones.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
parang
Interesting.
iba yung appreciation ko sa kanya compared to when I was younger. So I enjoy that a lot. And then I got into skincare as well because my friend,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tell
my
me,
friend,
tell me about it. Sige, mag-OG, chika minute tayo. Si OG, meron siyang 5 greens, G's, whatever, smoothie. Biglang, di ba? So ikaw, ano mo dyan? Anong smoothie mo dyan?
so
Natin dyan.
ano ba to? I use, baka may product placement kasi to. No,
Kaya ba
but
yan? Sige.
I just use my friend sent me kasi before, so she's a beauty vlogger. So her name is
Yeah.
Ben Rodolfo. And then she sent me mga samples because she gets lots of samples. So I got
Korean,
mga
man. Glass ba yan? Glass?
hindi. So iba-iba eh. So there's one I get na vitamin C and hyaluronic acid. I just
Right.
learned this by trying them out, no? And then mga niacinamide. So my morning routine is like a 5-step program.
Oh,
And,
wow.
but it's really enjoyable because I feel
You're taking care of yourself.
yeah, I'm taking
You're
care of
taking care of
myself. So
yourself.
parang,
Exactly, yeah.
and then after a year of neglect, kasi iba yung focus mo, parang it's time to focus on
Right.
yourself. And
Me
then
time.
me time. Yeah, basically it. So yeah, parang I got back into my advocacies then. Uh,
Right.
so doing a lot, going back to HIV work, going back to LGBT advocacy. So yeah, it was really about picking up the pieces and gaining new habits
Build
again.
back better. Build back better. Yeah. May pagkaganon. Now let's go to the final part. And I think this is really the reason why we're here, right? I mean, as we're not doing retrospective just for historical narcissism, right? We're doing that because we want the future to be better, right? I mean, from what I understand, you're not giving up on politics, you're not giving up on the country, you still believe there's a better future awaiting the Philippines. Now, what is your understanding of the next step for the movement, right? Because the pink movement cannot be just an election campaign volunteer movement. It has to go well beyond that. I mean, kind of imagine Angat Buhay writ large, right? That's my understanding of what the movement will be. So Angat Buhay of Lenny will be a core element, but also it has to go beyond that. What are your thoughts about that? How to make this movement solid? Because I don't know if you remember, my term for pink movement was Bibo, I mean, like, ito yung super Bibo na, I mean, like 7 months pa lang, imagine the impact it had on the global imagination, even Ariana Grande, right? So the potential is just huge. The question is, are we doing the right things to maximize that, or what are the right things we should do in the commerce to maximize that? Kasi I also remember you keep on saying, kulang ng oras, kulang ng ganyan. Well, there's 2025 elections, there's 2028 elections. What are your general thoughts about that? Yeah.
Yeah. I think at the top level, and of course I'm not privy to any negotiation. So there,
Yeah, I mean, this is strictly your personal view.
strictly from my personal perspective, no, there's a lot of talk around organizing politically at the national level, but I think the big lesson from the 2022 presidential campaign is that it's important to organize at the local level as well,
Grassroots, yeah.
because
LGU.
that's your machinery for an election win for a national level, no? So we also have to establish a better relationship with funding. Like, we shouldn't be, I mean, a political machinery requires funding. So, and I think some people feel iffy about the need to raise funds for political, for political purposes. But I mean, that's what political parties do, all over the world. And you have to make sure that you get the best people doing the important work. Like, you cannot rely on volunteers alone again in 2025, because I hope that it's not like a failing of the campaign, that they think that in 2025 they can rely on volunteers again, because I think Lenny is a once in a lifetime candidate, and the reason why volunteers did what they did for free was because it was Lenny, and not because it was for the opposition or for whatever. So I think organization is important at the local level. And for the pink movement per se, I think it's very critical that we engage at the personal local level as well. And the basic relationships with your neighbors, or your kamag-anak, your kabarangay, I think these are very crucial and critical. We don't really need to talk about we don't need to talk about politics in a way that is parang highfalutin, or alam mo yun, it's a it's a philosophical concept, or a formal conversation, because politics happens on our day-to-day lives.
Right. Dapat
So
relatable sa tao.
yeah, oo.
Tangible in a certain sense, yeah.
And I think it's important to listen talaga, more than talking to people. I think it's important to listen and understand why some people decided to go with another candidate. Especially now, I think, there are talks online about remorse, parang buyer's remorse on voting for BBM. So maybe it's a good idea to step out there and really listen to people and what
And
they
then
are.
condemn them and Schadenfreude.
Yeah,
That
ang
nonsense.
daming mga, I'm sure you've seen that also, and there are a lot of people gloating in a way na Schadenfreude actually is the more proper word, about ginusto niyo yan, and without really understanding how voters arrived at that decision point, and not everyone online is actually, a majority of the people who voted for BBM are not online. You cannot, you have to go to
Yeah.
the
Down
grassroots
yeah, into
to
the
really understand them and really get to know them. No? So
compassion. Yeah. I mean genuine compassion.
yeah, so I think what's happening at the national level and what's happening at the grassroots should meet eventually. I think some people in the movement are waiting for directives from the national, and some people from the national are waiting for the feel from the ground. So
There we go, right? Yeah. Where's
but
the initiative gonna come from? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I think I mean, for my own case naman, I'm advocating na the political discourse about 2025 should start now. We cannot wait any longer. And for there are some factions who are focused on fighting disinformation, or fighting fake news.
Which has its
And for
value,
me,
of course, which has its value. It has its
uh,
value, but
it
that's
has.
not gonna win you elections, right? Per se.
Exactly. So for me, if you want to win an election, it's not really, I mean, that's a noble cause for sure on its own, but it's not a political activity. I think every part of society should be part of that fight against disinformation.
Right.
But a political organization should be implementing that in a way that is that will help you win votes
Right.
by by putting the truths out there, putting the stories, the true narratives out there. That's how you fight disinformation, by presenting your information in a way that is truthful but also palatable for the voters, no? I think it's very important to get the ano ba yung kilite ng Filipino voter, and how can you give
What
them,
ticks the voters, yeah.
yeah, how can you get them, how can you offer them the truth and at the same time makiliti mo sila, no? Because I think that's the challenge of,
And not be judgmental and put them on the spot.
yeah,
Hindi mo ba alam fake yan? Hindi mo alam, ano ka, bobo, yung mga ganyan. I think that that
oh,
doesn't work. You don't fight disinformation by
yeah,
pissing off half of the people who voted for, the
yeah,
camp that probably shouldn't have voted for you, according to your side. Last thing, so there are two individuals still out there looming large. One is Riza Ontiveros, which is the
yeah,
de facto leader of the opposition, and the other one is, of course, Lenny. Um,
yeah.
can Rita be the kind of rallying point for the future, considering she was able to win again Senate, very tough position against all odds? And second, do you want Lenny to run again for 2025? What is your friendly suggestion, right? I mean, no one is here to tell
Wala na,
Lenny, right? But what's your friendly suggestion as someone who gave his heart and soul and more to the campaign last year? Yeah.
I would say it's more of like a wish. Na my wish is for her to run at whatever position, like whether that's Congress or Senate. But siguro my favorite would be a governor role in
Except
Camarines
babagay
Sur.
niya yung di ba? Medyo mahirap yan. Kasi feeling ko mas madali yung Senate sa kanya kaysa
True,
governor.
oo. Kasi I mean, governor is just one. It's either you win or not, di
Yeah,
ba? I mean, at
Senate
least the
12.
Senate is like 12. But I think kasi we need more examples of good governance.
LGU. I see what you're saying.
At the LGU level. I mean, marami naman dyan. But I mean, Lenny would be a very visible one because she used to be vice president. And I think we should be okay with the notion of, people being career politicians, because especially if you have a good politician anyway, then make them run for whatever office they're eligible for.
It's a
Diba?
craft. It's a craft. I mean, you
Yeah,
have to have EQ, emotional skills, raise funds. I mean,
yeah,
there's trapo and then there's trapo, right? I mean, there's like trapo, and there's like traditional politician because he just has or she just has what it takes, right? So, yeah, I think yun nga, like we should just drop this idea that if New Zealand tayo or Norway get, no, we're not. Nga, that's exactly the point. We have to work with what we got, and it's not the worst
yeah.
actually. If you've been in other parts of Asia, actually Philippines is still not that, in fairness, not that bad. I mean, we couldn't have had this podcast if we were in Russia, for instance, or China, or even some of our neighboring countries, right? Good luck. Even in Thailand, right? Things would have been very, very difficult. What about Riza? What do you have to say about Riza? Hi,
Oh,
and
of course, Risa. I love Risa Ontiveros. She is champion for LGBT rights. She's a champion
right,
for HIV. I think what Risa did well in the last elections, the reason why she won is because she really engaged at the local level, no, and
right,
she really talked to local leaders because she knew that's the key to win.
right.
Like, I think it's not a big ask naman na parang of the 12 in the list, maybe you can add a Risa Ontiveros there. So it's I think it's a it's a reasonable ask. But what she did, or what her team did, was to really do the groundwork of that.
Yeah.
And
And they had advertisement in dialects, in
yeah,
different parts of the. I heard a lot about that. Doon din daw masyadong magaling si Robin Hood. He also did very well in turn. Kaya nga natalo si Tulfo, di ba? We were all expecting Tulfo to top it.
yeah,
Naisahan daw siya ni Robin Hood dun sa ganun, yung mga community level in Visayas, Mindanao. Thank you for pointing that out. Very important. Yeah.
yeah. So I think Risa, of course, Risa can be a good, rallying point for the opposition. I think both of them are women of character, competence talaga. I'm not really sure uh, if she will run for president or vice president. I mean, I don't have a sense of that. I mean, of course, it's possible, but I haven't had that sense from her. I mean, malayo pa naman yung 2028 and she has a full 6-year term now.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So she's
she's
set
probably,
all the way. So really the question more is how can she coordinate potentially with the Lenny run in 2025, right? How
yeah,
can they create this dyad, these
yeah.
tools in leadership, right? Yeah.
But yeah, Ma'am Lenny's really supportive of Risa, and I mean, wala talagang ego si Lenny. Parang, you
Wala
know,
rin si Risa, right? I mean, like, both of them are exceptional. I mean, like, I do deal a lot with a lot of politicians, right? It's like, iba sila eh. Like, like,
yeah,
you don't get that competitive feel. Like, you know me, I have my own I'm a big personality guy, right? So like, I could see like you're feeling me and I'm feeling you. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I never got that with Lenny or with Risa at all, which is like
yeah,
weird. Like, para aktivista ang kausap mo eh,
yeah.
hindi senador, hindi VP, di ba? Yeah.
So it's very interesting how that will play out in 2025 or 2028. But I would be happy to see, Lenny back in a position in the government position, and maybe a Risa national position again in 2028. Yeah.
And final thoughts. See, ang bait ko talaga. Di ba? Talaga si, sabi men, ay, mabait pala si Daria. I'm telling you, people always, if you just read my tweets, you have no idea, right? No, the tweets are just hatak lang yan para we can approach the conversations. Yeah. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Final thoughts, like, do you want the pink movement to prepare na the ground for Lenny to run? I mean, like, what is your wish and what is your advice, right? Wish is a little bit too passive. Be a little bit more active. Like, what is your advice?
Okay.
Let's go. Rallying call. Boom.
Yeah. My advice would be to get the movement started and in your own local levels, in your own communities. The GCs are still open. You still have your groups going. We don't have to wait for a candidate to make change happen. There are a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of change that needs to be done. A lot of people need help, and a lot of people need someone to who will listen to them, especially at this point. And I think the basis of a win would be on how well we can listen to the people who will be voting for our leaders in the future. So I don't think the end has come. I think we really just got started. We really just got started, and it's really a dream to work with the whole Kakamping movement, all 15 million of the people who voted for Lenny, Risa, and all of the candidates. And it's a really good base. It's a good starting point. It's a good starting point for social change. So I think we should, take it. And regardless of who will be at the top, who will lead, we have a lot of shared values and principles that we can start with, and start the conversation, start the activities, however simple they are. Magpakain kayo, magpalugaw kayo ulit, and then listen to people. Ask everyone to come, regardless of their political belief, whether they have or not, and then listen, and then we will find out how can we move forward.
And Ben, do you think, as I kind of suggested that, right? Which is maybe time for a kind of a memoir, post-mortem, reflection on what went right and wrong about the last elections? Because I think that could be a blueprint for the next chapter, right? I mean, you cannot just talk about next chapter if you don't have a introductory chapter.
Ako ba yan or someone else?
I mean, okay, like I saw what you did there. Okay. Anyway, no, I'm saying maybe I should also write something about the pink movement. No, I think that would be an interesting thing. Like just a lighthearted about the potential, etc. Because kailangan natin yan. Because in the US, diba, it's a cottage industry. The Obama campaign, the McCain campaign. I think we have to do more of that. Not in a partisan way. Of course, I'll come in my own way. But probably there should be a memoir also. Baka ikaw, baka gusto mo magsulat ng memoir dyan.
Pag ginawa ko kaya yan, pag head of comms pa rin ako ng next campaign.
Malay mo, baka campaign manager ka na next. Kunin ka ng kabila. Head
No.
ka ng kabila.
No. I did think about it, and I think there are a lot of things that we can learn from the campaign talaga, and a lot of
constructive again.
Yeah, oo.
Yeah,
a lot of things that we can learn from, especially when we realize our it's been what, almost a year since the end of the elections, diba? Or the last elections. So parang hindsight gives you, diba, hindsight is always 2020. When the haze of the excitement goes away, you kind of realize na, yeah, these are the mistakes that I would have done differently.
Parang
So
hugot yan. May when the haze of Lande is over.
yeah. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll let you know if there will be a memoir coming out.
Or multiple memoirs. I mean,
Yeah, that would be
you want,
for sure.
TikTokers, volunteers one. I mean, my hope is based on talking to you guys off the record, on the record, I'll be able to put also something together. Hopefully, because kagabi I couldn't sleep until like 5 a.m. I was thinking like, no, I need to write something. I mean, I need to process this intellectually and emotionally. I said maybe I should write a book about it. Like small lang, nothing academic, bongga. No, just a small basic booklet about, because this is, why are we doing this, right? We are doing this because we believe we can do it, right? I mean, what gives you hope? What gives you hope? What gives you the energy and the, you know, the positive vibes you have right now, aside from your skincare and yoga?
You know what?
Let's go.
You know, the volunteers are really
Right.
genuine. They're genuine. And I can sleep well at night knowing that there are 15 million people out there who are
Boom.
and
At least.
yeah.
Like at least. Yeah.
That's like more than I dreamed of when we started the campaign.
Thank you so much. Thank you. On that note, Ben, hopefully we can have more of these conversations. Doesn't have to be on the record all the time. I know. Grabe, no? 2 hours na yata tayo, no? Grabe, no? It's parang wala lang. Parang nagmarites lang tayo dito. I really, really appreciate. Thank you, Ben, for taking the time. You know, super busy. Actually, I wanted to talk to you on Thursday pa. But in my mind, kind of it was Friday, you know. Pasensya na, diba? Like, PhD ako all over the place. But I'm so glad we got this time to have this for a weekend. The responses have been wonderful. People love it. I think the volunteer story is one of the most amazing stories in Philippine political history. For anyone who doesn't have hope in because of trapo politics, suddenly they'll think about volunteers like, actually, no, there's another possibility for the Philippines. So salamat, Ben, and thank you to you, and thank you to you also for helping to bring all of these volunteers together. And I look forward to more conversation with people involved in the campaign and what are the great lessons for the future. Maraming salamat, Ben.
Sorry, thank you so much.
God bless and talk to you soon. Wait lang, picture tayo ng 1 second. Like, para may mabash. Pangan! Ito yung pang next after OG. Ito. All right. Yes, talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Pleasure.